marks the first week of going live with you on the show. And it's incredible to have your support in this movement. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it. It is a determined movement for this group that has started to continue to, that has started small and then is continuing to grow. And it's incredible to be able to have your support in that by you coming in, asking your questions live, comments, leaving those afterwards, sharing it with friends and family. These episodes for the show. It's something I want to make sure I acknowledge right here for you of how grateful I am because it does mean a lot to be able to go out here and seek the truth. I've talked about it before where you don't understand something, be curious and ask questions. Doesn't mean it's always easy to do that. And you are helping me to go out there courageously and to do that when I don't understand something, when something doesn't make sense, when the truth becomes uncomfortable, to step up and be able to share that with you. And I said that at the beginning of this, that one of my commitments is to seek out the truth. And where I do make mistakes, I'll admit that for you. And when it gets really uncomfortable, continuing to share that truth. And you helped me to be able to do that. So thank you so much. I'm excited for another a week of going live. It's going to start back up on Monday. What I want to do tonight is set the stage for you for what to expect for another industry that I want to focus on. And I'm going to take some time next week to focus on this because it's something that I feel is the heart of the community for small businesses. I want to share my 3 takeaways too from this week to recap. Some of the stuff where I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. I got to explore this more, be curious, ask questions. And these are the three takeaways I got from all of the other, the shows this past week. And then after that, I want to take a moment to just be able to let you know how much I appreciate you. Like, I know I'm kicking it off with this. I feel like it's like too much sometimes here, but it's true. You guys mean a lot in this journey. I'm gonna get to that at the end though for a send off going into the weekend. But let me get into it for today of the takeaways. And where I want to start is with government over regulation in industries. I mean, I noticed that I started off with this week. We together we went through the small family farms, talking about how the big issue coming up is overregulation, and then even permitting for the building industry that was coming up. And it seems to be a common theme, right? And I go back to capitalism has lifted billions of people out of poverty around the world in the last 100 years. And the more we can move towards the free market capitalism, I think government in a lot of different industries, you can notice it for yourself in your own industry. If you're a small business owner, or if you are a supporter of small businesses, you just notice if you take the time to want to go down those paths of figuring out how much involvement government has in that specific industry, you'll notice that there can be a lot in these different industries. And sometimes it can be unnecessary and there can be overregulation. I do believe in some limited government involvement when it comes to avoiding monopolies and creating more opportunities for competition. That is really important. But it goes back to this freedom that we have to decide how we make a living through capitalism is something that we must preserve here in the US. And there are evil forces I've talked about before. If it's socialism to then communism to globalism, that are putting pressure on this freedom. Because again, the roads of socialism and communism, it's like one's the appetizer, the main meal. It leads to the abolition of private property. And that is something I don't want for you to experience. Because again, you have this freedom to be able to own your own small business, that right. And I don't want that to be taken away. And it's important for us to keep talking about this. I know it can get uncomfortable where you want to just stay in your own world and then focus on just like being able to create the profit, to reinvest in the business, make sure your basic needs are met. But at the same time, you got to realize also how fragile this is. And it's important for us as small business owners, we have a powerful voice. And for you, if you're a supporter of small businesses, you have a powerful voice. And we got to continue to be able to express that and share that and be able to understand what's going on a national level. and to come together and unite in that way, because I've said it before, and it's remembering that there's power and then there's the rest of us. And when you can filter it through that lens, things start to make a lot more sense. And there's something we got to do about that. And that comes back to having the conversations, continuing to focus on supporting small businesses, and believing in this future that is America's future, which is a small business renaissance made possible by free market capitalism. So that's takeaway number one, is government overregulation in industries, noticing where that is, where can there be changes that can be made so it creates easier opportunities for Americans to start small businesses in their specific industry and to compete as well. I mean, I talked about that with the meat packers, and how you have the big four that's controlling around 80% for beef processing, and where could be the opportunities to be able to support more local processors, and be able to support that localization of the supply chain. And that goes into takeaway number two, is that it, how can we, instead of consolidating and consolidating and consolidating a whole lot more, just keep on saying it, consolidate, consolidate, consolidate. Instead of doing that, how can we create more opportunities for competition, to have more of these businesses that are able to thrive? And that's where I come back to localizing supply chains. Where can that be possible? And it starts with this movement towards that, of wanting to focus on the local. And it's a movement that involves all of us, of having to voice that, of the importance of wanting to support the local communities, our towns, our cities. A lot of them are falling apart. And it's up to us to be able to come together in order to rebuild these towns and these cities, and figure out where are those forces that are not wanting to join in on that, and then making sure that we are finding ways to talk to our elected officials and making sure they understand our concerns, and be able to want to support the American people. Because I said it before, that for decades our ruling class leaders, I mean, they sold out our future. It's China, globalist corporations, self-interest lobbyists. Why do they do this? Well, to enrich themselves and hold on to power, while at the same time rigging the system to keep down good, decent, middle-class Americans and small businesses. And you can look back at history at the difference when it comes to this middle class, and how it seems that small businesses have gone from ownership, if that's in ownership of the buildings that their stores are in, to ownership of the equipment, to then renters, to leasing. And there's got to be a change here, because the results aren't that great. There's a lot of pain in a lot of industries. And there's some moments of having hope. But with all that pain, where it can lead, and it's been leading towards this hopeless feeling. And if you're not getting the results that you want over years, then you get to this point where you feel like you have to give up. And that is something I don't want to have happen to you, is this giving up energy, this hopelessness. One reason for doing this show is to give you hope. And then from there, to create a plan and to start to take the action towards making change that you actually see and experience. If that's in your specific industry as a small business owner, or that you can see with the small businesses that you're supporting. And so that comes back to localizing supply chains. Where is that possible? Where have we lost our way here in this country? And where can we come back to the future in that way? Going back and bringing back in the past these ideas that were really helpful for supporting small businesses, and help to make such a strong middle class in the US. How can we bring those back in a new way? In a way that empowers the individual and protects and preserves our freedoms, one of which is our freedom of speech. So that's number two for my takeaway. Moving on to number three is affordability. I mean, you're feeling it. I'm feeling it. We're all feeling it in some way for affordability. I talked about that with homeownership the other night. But you could also look at the prices for as a small business owner, prices of getting started for your startup costs. What do they like for a brick and mortar to where they were in the past? And then for materials, is it better to lease or to buy? To rent the building or own the building? These questions that we got to start asking more about of what is the benefit long term? When you can start to think more long term rather than short term, you start to care more about the future of the area that you're in. You care more about wanting to make sure that this place is going to be around for a while. And it seems like we've gotten into this short term thinking. And was it planned? Were there forces at work here? Did it just happen by accident? That's where we got to be curious and ask questions. But with affordability, we got to look at where are the opportunities to make a change. And we're probably gonna have to experience some pain, some more pain. And we've got to realize that through the struggle, through the suffering, that's where the character is developed. That's where purpose is found. It's not something you just chase off. It can come to you, this purpose, through the struggle. And then it can be temporary. It's remembering it's temporary, that you can move through this. And that on the other side of it, you become stronger, more courageous, more confident in who you are. And discipline plays a major role in that. And that's something that has to come back into the forefront for us these moral values, is remembering the importance of discipline, of self-control. And then to also take the perspective of long-term, understanding where you're headed, and wanting to take care of your community, the city or town that you're in, building those relationships, how important those relationships are. If that's with your city council, to city elected officials, mayor, to state representatives, to the agencies in your specific industry, to other peers, other business owners, to the community members that you support through your services or products. Relationships are really important and play a powerful role, and it can continue to bring us back to the importance of community and connection. And when we're not constantly just like running around trying to like get things done super fast and try to get through all of our lists or to-do lists, and we can actually take a moment to realize what really matters here for the priority and get that done and then move on to the next, a lot of positive changes can happen. But again, it's going to take more than just you and me. It's going to take all of us to have to step up and make the change. And it's absolutely possible. We're taking the lead, and that's why this movement is such a powerful movement for America's future. But from there, it's got to become that ripple effect. So those are my 3 takeaways. Recap them one more time for you. Government overregulation, localized supply chains, affordability. Big. Going to expand upon that moving forward. And what I want to set the stage for next week is talking about one industry that I do feel is the heart of the community. And you could argue like, well, I'll save that. I'll save that for next week. But what I want to get into with this is the restaurant industry. I've gotten a lot of people or a lot of videos that I see people talking about which businesses to get into and which ones not to get into. And restaurants seems to always be on the list of what business to not get into. But I just want you to take a moment to think about this question, because we got, it's Happy Friday, by the way. Happy Friday. We got the weekend coming up. And I would ask you, like, what do you think about doing on the weekend? What would be like an activity that you would want to do, or a small business that you would want to support? How would you want to get connected into your local community over the weekend? I would say for me, thinking back even a few years ago, if I were to think back a few years ago, one of them would be going and eating at a restaurant, at an FSR or a full service restaurant. That's going out to dinner. You got brunch, but that would be something that would come up. Even now, for me personally, to this day, I feel the tightness of like, oh, do I really want to go to the restaurant, or I can just make something here at the house? And I've gone more towards making something at the house, apartment, or the hotel that I'm at. If it's a hotel with a kitchen, because I travel a lot, and so that's where I go back to affordability. Is how can we then have more money for us to be able to go out there and support small businesses and go and eat at these restaurants? And then also, what are consumers looking for at these restaurants now? I think of one as like the immersive and experiential dining is an area of focus. If that's adding these experiences like tasting menus, or is it a dinner and a show that you can experience? I used to go to Toby's Theater. Man, I remember that, where you go and you see a musical. I like that. That was fun to me. I remember growing up. Yeah, like my parents, they take us all over there. It was me, my two other brothers, and we'd be able to experience that. And it was really cool. It was a cool experience. Or if you've ever gone to a movie theater that has where you can get food too, it's not. And I wouldn't say it's definitely not an FSR, but just like this idea of the experiences they could have while you're eating. Yeah, that one's going to be for another conversation then for getting into the movie theater business, because that we could get into that for a whole separate conversation. But bringing it back into the FSRs, yeah, it's like what could be some cool experiences that you could add into the business. And then also thinking about health is another like the ingredients that are being used, connecting with local farmers in the area. There's that trend of that importance depending on where you are in the U.S. So that's and it's, oh well, actually, with the MBE summit being down in Charleston, South Carolina, where you get to come and connect with other small business owners. That's I was there for 10 years. I lived down there, and there's amazing restaurants there. I'm excited to go back and see which new restaurants are starting up. I've been around there, which ones are still there. But I'm excited to be able to go and visit that city. But restaurants is what comes up for the heart of the community, to experience uh, the area more, to be able to be part of um, different. I was gonna say, like when it goes to visiting, traveling, when you can go to a restaurant, you can get a sense of the area, the people that live there, the locals, being able to find ways to connect over a shared meal. And it's a really cool experience. And I don't want to see that go away in our country. I don't want us to see we're constantly, we're always at our homes, having everything delivered to us for convenience, for ease. As I go back, a little friction, little bit of um, a little bit of having to the pain of getting out of your house and going to a restaurant. There's a reward on the other side of that too. There can be of that experience. So I want to get into more of this next week, but what I want to share is that there are around 70% of the FSRs are small businesses. And again, as a reminder, FSRs are full service restaurants. Um, and what I dove into was understanding, okay, how many rent compared to own for the buildings. And when it was pre 1970s, mostly the restaurant owners owned the building. And then now it's like, I mean, it's like mostly renters for these buildings, for the restaurant owners having to rent. And I'm wondering here if there's an opportunity for things to change. That's what I'm wondering. I'm like, can there be an opportunity here where you start with, and I've seen examples of this, where you start with the lease and then you can buy the building or have first right of refusal if the landlord is going to sell the property, or if it's part of a group, private equity firm, where they're selling that property, you could have first right of refusal. So I've seen that been done. That I've seen examples of that. I want to know if you're in the industry, if there's other examples, and I want to know if you're in the industry. Really, why do you do it? Because so many people are talking about you shouldn't get into this business; it's not profitable. And for me, I really believe, especially having conversations with I like having conversations about this, is like there's something greater than just the profit in this. There's a soul element here, and it goes back to the heart of the community, the feeling of bringing people together around the table to experience food. And there is such a deep level of connection that can happen in those situations, in those experiences, that make it so rewarding, for you being a small business owner that owns a FSR. And so I want to know more about that. I want to know more of the struggles, the challenges. It goes back between leasing or owning the equipment, the kitchen equipment, and then funding is another thing. I feel like I'm starting to see some connection points here between funding. This because I think about, we've gotten in a lot into different types of loans out there, but what does that do? I think back to on the federal level for the federal government, we're $38 trillion in debt. I mean, look at the student loan, auto loans, mortgages, business loans. I've talked about that before, all these different loans out there. You got to start asking those questions like, is this really the best direction to go into? Because I'm seeing a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. And so maybe there has to be a conversation there that we got to get into more between how to get started in self-funding and potentially get more into what are different small business owners doing to get started for how to start their business and fund their business. That I would like to know if there could be some changes done there, so you don't feel even more stressed with those type of burdens financially. And because I said before, with one of the missions of Make Brand Extinct that I've had is on an individual level, to not let the stress control you. That's really important. And then when you are making a profit in the business, getting your basic needs met, you experience a lot less stress, and then the problems that you're dealing with become a lot easier. And again, with the 33 million small business owners that are out there that employ over 45%, or around 45% of the private workforce, this is a very powerful force that can make massive changes in this country. And we got to continue to unify and rally around this, and continue to support the individual freedoms that we have of being able to own our small business. And then for you as a supporter of small business, for you to continue to support these businesses, as I said with the restaurants, be the heart of the community. And for me, I believe small businesses are the heart of the economy. We got to continue to move forward and continue to get this out there. So what I want to leave you with is a lot of gratitude, a lot of appreciation for you being a part of this movement. We are fighting for our republic, for Western civilization, for our values, for the American dream. And we are fighting for a better future, a future that gives us hope, gives us excitement. We're fighting for what is good, beautiful, and true. And we're never going to give up in this fight, because we know what is possible. And we know that it does take a lot of courage and have faith to continue to move forward. But it's also what can fuel your life to realize that you're bigger than just this is bigger than just you. That you are part of something that is creating ripple effects across this country. America's future is a small business renaissance. Thank you for being part of this. I'm excited to reconnect again soon. Good night.